Okay, so have you ever felt like, maybe we're all just living in some story someone else is writing?
Ooh, I like that.
Right. It's a bit out there, but
Yeah.
that's the kind of headspace this philosophical work we're looking at today really gets you into.
And it's philosophy, Lucy.
It is. It is philosophy, Lucy, and we're diving into excerpts. But even those, let me tell you, they pack a punch. We're talking big, big questions here. Creation, purpose,
Yeah.
the whole shebang.
And what's fascinating to me is how the text tackles these huge concepts by actually starting with the creation of the universe itself.
Right.
It's like it's not just about how it all began, but more like how can we understand our own existence within that grand framework?
It's really clever, and it starts with this, oh man, this incredibly vivid description of a void. And I don't mean just, empty space. It's more like before empty space.
Yeah, like the emptiness that has to exist before anything else can.
Yeah.
No time, no light, just pure absolute nothingness.
And then
bam!
things start to happen.
Exactly. And that's where this idea of speaking things into existence comes in.
Which, of course, immediately makes you think about the Big Bang.
Right.
That whole concept of from nothing, something. But what I find so clever is how the text uses the power of words to really drive that home.
Oh, absolutely. There's this one line, I've got to find it. Okay, here it is. The authors are talking about creation, and they just shout, "The beginning, manifest into reality an element that lights the space with glory and warmth." And just like that.
The sun.
The sun, it's like they willed it into being with those words.
Such a powerful way to demonstrate creation. But it also gets you thinking, right? About the intentionality behind it all. Because they make this really interesting distinction.
Oh, tell me.
So they say God created the universe with words that make sense, this grand sweeping act. But then when it comes to humans,
It gets more personal.
humans, they say, were made with his hands.
Oh, wow. So what do we make of that? What does it mean?
Well, it definitely seems like a deliberate choice, wouldn't you say? This difference between how the universe was made and how we were made. And that's where this whole exploration of purpose really kicks in.
And that brings us to, I think, one of the most fascinating parts of this whole thing, Lucy.
Right. From the birth of the universe to this very specific being.
It's quite a jump.
And with Lucy, the authors introduced this incredible ethical quandary. Because they've created her, but now they have a decision to make. Do they place her in the world as it is, with all of its complexities and, frankly, its chaos?
Right? I mean,
Or do they try to craft an entirely new universe for her? One where maybe, just maybe, they can control the variables a little better.
it's like they're grappling with how much our environment truly shapes who we become.
Exactly.
They even play around with different scenarios. Should Lucy be an orphan? Should she grow up in wealth, in poverty?
Right, right.
It's amazing how they highlight just how much those external factors can influence a whole life.
And what I find so compelling is that they're having this debate, this ethical back and forth within the text itself.
It's meta in a way.
It is. It's not just a detached philosophical exercise. It feels so personal, like they're really carrying the weight of these decisions and what they could mean for Lucy.
Especially when they start talking about how everything is part of this big cycle. Like they have this line, everything has a beginning and an end.
It's true, though, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. But knowing that, I mean, really knowing it, how do you even begin to choose the right path for someone else? For Lucy.
It's the big question, right? And it makes you think about free will versus determinism.
Ugh, my brain hurts already.
But if they know, if they're aware of the heartbreak, the suffering that's just part of the human experience, is it even ethical to bring someone into that, even if they're the ones creating them?
Which is actually interesting because that's when they start talking about their own lives, their own experiences with these really big questions. And it gets, well, pretty intense when they bring up their own struggles with suicidal thoughts.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
suddenly, the whole text takes on this other layer of meaning. Because it's not abstract anymore, is it?
No.
It's interwoven with their own really personal struggles, their own search for meaning in a world that can feel so random and chaotic.
So are they projecting their own fears and doubts onto Lucy? I mean, are they dooming her to a life of suffering by even creating her?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yes.
is there more to it? Like, is
Yeah.
there something we're missing here? I've got to say that part about their, their personal struggles, it's intense. Makes you wonder if maybe creating Lucy was their way of, I don't know, trying to find some kind of answer. Yeah, it could be. Like when faced with so much uncertainty in your own life.
You create something new.
Exactly. It's a very human thing, isn't it, to create, to try and find some meaning, some purpose, especially when things feel really dark.
And they're not shying away from the darkness, that's for sure. Like, there's this line, everything revolves around cycle.
Vehicles?
And then they go into this whole thing about, like, imagine a pet being given as a gift and then taken away at different times,
Oh, wow.
right? Sometimes suddenly, sometimes expectedly, but it always happens.
About death, obviously.
Totally.
What?
But it's also about that fear we all have of not knowing when our time is up.
It's true. And it ties into this idea that even when we experience joys and when things are good, there's always this awareness, maybe.
Of it ending.
Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
we can't fully embrace happiness without also acknowledging that it won't last forever. That loss and suffering are also part of the deal.
Which honestly can be kind of a downer, no? Like, can't we just enjoy the good times without always thinking about them ending?
I think what the authors are trying to say is that it's not about focusing on the negative or dwelling on the bad stuff. It's about acknowledging that life is cyclical.
Okay. Yeah.
It has these ebbs and flows, light and shadow. And it's in recognizing that, in accepting it, that we can maybe appreciate how rich and complex human experience really is.
Okay, I can see that. But then they say, a satisfied soul is never truly content. And this is where I get tripped up a bit. Aren't satisfaction and contentment kind of the same thing?
It's a subtle difference, but it's important. I think what they're saying is that true contentment, real contentment, isn't about achieving some perfect, unchanging state of, I made it, I'm done.
Like checking things off a list.
Yeah, or reaching some ultimate goal. It's more about finding that peace and acceptance within yourself.
So it doesn't matter what's happening externally.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the journey with all of its craziness and recognizing that true contentment comes from within.
That reminds me of something I heard the other day. This idea that we spend so much time chasing happiness as if it's something outside of us, some destination to arrive at.
When really it's about cultivating something within.
Yes, exactly. Like, maybe true happiness is more about inner peace than outer circumstances.
Absolutely. It's a total shift in perspective, isn't it? From seeking happiness in what we achieve to finding it in the present moment.
Just in the act of being.
Yes. And I think that connects really beautifully to the final section of what we're looking at today, my unpopular conclusion.
This is where they tell us what they decided to do with Lucy, right?
Yeah, not exactly. This is where things get even more interesting, I think, because they shift gears again. It's less about the external now, less about creating the perfect world, and more about embracing imperfection.
So what does that mean for Lucy? They created this whole ethical dilemma around her, and now it's like,
They're moving on.
well, yeah.
I don't think it's about abandoning Lucy. I think it's more like through creating this thought experiment, they've stumbled upon a truth that's bigger than her.
Okay, now you have to explain that. What's the big revelation? What's this unpopular conclusion, and how does it all fit together? That unpopular conclusion, like, you can fill in the blanks. What is it already? And what about Lucy? Feels like we built up this whole thing, this decision about her, and then poof.
Maybe that is the point, though, right? Not what they decide in the end, but what thinking about her, about creating someone, makes them realize.
Okay, but what do they realize? What's this big revelation?
So my unpopular conclusion, it's like they took everything, all those big questions, and tried to boil it down.
Yeah.
They start with, life is meant to be lived fully, good times and bad, it's all part of it. Okay, fine, everyone says that. But tathai. Death. Death is a gift, they say.
Harsh gift, but yeah, they keep coming back to that. But how is ending it all, especially the good stuff?
Yeah.
How's that a gift?
Because maybe, and here's where it gets unpopular, maybe knowing at ENDS is what makes life matter.
So, because it doesn't last forever.
We value it more.
Yeah.
They even talk about how even if you're satisfied, truly satisfied, there's this part of us that's never content. Like we'd always want more.
So it's like you don't know what you got till it's gone. Are they saying the meaning of life is just to be grateful we're alive, even when it's tough?
I think it's deeper. Not just being grateful, but realizing the beauty, the meaning. It's not in this perfect happiness, because we'll never get there.
It's in the trying.
The experiencing. Loving people even though
it won't last forever. And that makes me think of Lucy, by not choosing, by just leaving her story open. It's like they're saying their IS, no right way to live.
Exactly. No guaranteed path to meaning. And maybe that's the creation lesson. It's not control, but making space for things to happen. Good, bad, all of it.
That's a lot, man. Powerful, but unsettling, too. So what are we supposed to do with that? We're not creating universes over here.
But we are living in one. What if, instead of looking for this big purpose, we focused on how we're living right now.
Not letting it just happen to us.
Yeah. And embracing the good with the bad, the joy with the pain. It's all part of it, right?
Not trying to make life perfect, just finding what we can love about it right now, messy as it is.
That's it. That's the heart of philosophy, Lucy, I think. Embracing what we don't know, finding beauty even if it's temporary, loving people even though
Well.
the journey itself is what matters.
Wow. Okay, lots to think about. So everyone listening, we went